And in addition to being exposed as total frauds and political hacks over the government shutdown, well, Democrats are also massive hypocrites, and we have the evidence. Here's what they said back in 2013 when they were trying to blame Republicans for a government shutdown.
Hold it now.
I call them legislative arsonists. They're there to burn down what we should be building up in terms of investments in education and scientific research and all that it is that make our country great and competitive.
It's sort of like this. Someone goes into your house, takes your wife and children hostage, and then says, let's negotiate over the price of your house. You know, we could do the same thing on immigration. We believe strongly in immigration reform. We could say we're shutting down the government. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling until you pass immigration reform. It would be governmental chaos.
I join the American people in their disgust at what happened in terms of the shutdown of government. It's an unthinkable tactic to use in the political debate.
The Democrats want to see a shutdown to get off this subject because this subject is not working for them. The tax cuts and tax reform has not been working well for the Democrats. Now, yesterday you saw with Apple, $350 billion investment. Now they're also giving thousands of dollars to their employees. That's happening all over the country, and I'm really happy. People are really doing well. They're doing better than they have in years. And to be honest, the tax cuts, not only have they worked, they're working much bigger and much faster than we ever thought possible. I really believe the Democrats want a shutdown to get off the subject of the tax cuts because they've worked so well.
Came to the issue of, quote, chain migration. I said to the president, do you realize how painful that term is to so many people? African Americans believe that they migrated to America in chains. And when you speak about chain migration, it hurts them personally. And he said, oh, that's a good line.
Of course, that's up to $5,000 or more each year to go to college. Residents of the United States, American citizens who qualify can receive that help. These students in the process of going to college could not receive them. Students who apply for the DREAM Act would be subject to tough criminal penalties for fraud. The DREAM Act would not allow what is known as chain migration. In fact, DREAM Act students would have very limited ability to sponsor their family members for legal status.
Wow.
I'm sensing some hypocrisy, certainly undertones from Democrats who, well, of course, now they're switching sides on James Comey following President Trump's firing of the former FBI director. But, of course, this is not the first time. Here's what they said about him last fall after Comey reopened the investigation to Hillary Clinton's emails. Roll tape.
When I heard about it, I found it hard to believe that Comey, who I thought had some degree of integrity, would do this.
I think he made a mistake on this, and he clearly has a double standard.
I am so disappointed in Comey. He has let the country down for partisan purposes.
Do you believe that Jim Comey should resign, Senator Reid?
Of course, yes.
You won't believe it, but now they're breaking out the world's smallest violin, a nano violin, and singing a very sympathetic tune. Roll tape.
I simply said to him, Mr. President, in all due respect, you're making a very big mistake.
Well, it's incredibly disturbing at many levels. It just harkens back, I think, to some of the most tainted actions by President Nixon.
Senator, what was your first thought when you heard of the Comey firing?
Disbelief. I was stunned, and I'll say I think we're living through the stress test of this 230-year-old democracy. And so while I was critical, I never called for him to be fired.
To compare him with athletes of similar height and weight. And yeah, I'm not sure. Anybody want to comment? I'm not sure if it makes me feel better that this doctor says that he has no cognitive issues. It makes me feel worse and more worried for the country.
Well, it's just the way he is. I think what we learned here is that it's not any kind of an illness, that if he's
a bad guy,
erratic or changes his mind a lot or has outbursts, it's his personality.
If he bullies people, if he accuses them of giving sexual favors, if he maligns people, if he lies, if he calls countries S-holes, this is all not due to some sort of mental deficiency.
Well, sadly,
this
all
is
those
who he
behaviors
is.
are part of the normal spectrum.
This is who he is.
This is who he is.
Fantastic.
Some of the numbers are hard to believe. What I would say is that Dr. Jackson has a great reputation. He was President Obama's doctor.
Sure.
You had person after person from the Obama White House coming out on social media yesterday and saying Dr. Jackson is a great doctor. The conspiracy theories arrest. So some of those numbers did stop us in our tracks, but I take the doctor at his word.
Me too. And
listen, he does. I saw David Axelrod yesterday saying that he had great respect for the doctor and he was a straight shooter. That means an awful lot, so we won't question the doctor. I will say on his mental sharpness, if that is in fact the case, and medically perhaps that is, he has shocked and surprised a lot of people who have worked around him for the past several years, who have been saying that he is not. And secondly, I've just got to say on the weight, I know somebody who is 6'3" and weighs close to 239 pounds. And all I can tell you is this: if that's what 239 pounds looked like, I would weigh 170 pounds.
Most reporters live in neighborhoods without a single person who doesn't go to SoulCycle at least 4 times a week. They've never seen a fat person. They think Trump is obese.
Well, listen, he had a doctor, a real admiral, come out who impressed the Bush family and the Obama family and their respective staffs and didn't know Donald Trump at all before he ran for president and won the White House. He came out and said, here's a thorough exam. I mean, the same media corps that missed FDR's wheelchair and Woodrow Wilson's stroke and the back problems of JFK finally got a full exam and a 55-minute presser to follow where every question was answered, and they zero in on his height, which would reveal too much weight. Americans sometimes should lose 10 to 15 pounds. He is sadly healthy. This is the bad news for the press corps, as I understand it. This morning, Tucker, I thought the big story was the crazy questions asked of that doctor. Later on, when the show ends, I find out everyone doubts the validity and the sanctity of the doctor's comments, and they want a public weigh-in. If Hillary Clinton had won in this age of equality and political correctness, would we have done the pinch test on her? Would we have asked for her weight and demand a second source? This is incredible. In the age of political correctness, we are fat-shaming a president who simply has to lose 10 to 15 pounds. Were they rooting for disease? They were rooting for something to stop him from being president.
Take my pulse while I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Make sure I'm alive.
Can you open this jar of pickles? This has not been tampered with.
I'm feeling so much better, and obviously I should have gotten some rest sooner.
Hillary Clinton speaking to CNN from her home after days of trying to recover from pneumonia.
I just thought I could keep going forward and power through it.
The Democratic nominee responding to critics who have slammed her campaign for not disclosing her diagnosis sooner.
I just didn't think it was going to be that big a deal.
She's trying to turn the transparency spotlight back on Donald Trump, who has yet to release his tax returns or medical records.
Compare everything you know about me with my opponent. I think it's time he met the same level of disclosure that I have for years.
Clinton pledging to return to the campaign trail this week, texting her supporters that she's feeling fine and getting better, and calling into the San Francisco fundraiser she was forced to miss.
I wish so much I could be there.
Clinton tells CNN she never lost consciousness when she lost her balance while leaving Sunday's 9/11 memorial service.
I felt overheated. I decided that I did need to leave, and as soon as I got into the air-conditioned van, I cooled off, I got some water, and very quickly I felt better.
Her husband, Bill Clinton, says this isn't the first time she's had such an incident.
Rarely, but on more than one occasion over the last many, many years, the same sort of things happened to her when she just got severely dehydrated.
I think really only twice that I can recall. It is something that has occurred a few times over the course of my life.
Back in 2012, Clinton fainted at her home, suffering a concussion, which her husband said took her 6 months to recover from. At the time, the State Department downplayed it as a stomach virus and dehydration.
And then later this afternoon, it almost sounded like the mainstream media was disappointed when they couldn't get the president's doctor to say he wasn't in good health physically and mentally. I was glued to this all afternoon. So the president's doctor came out and gave the guy a clean bill of health, Greg. And as you've said, this is the most transparent president ever. And the fact that they gave specific details about his diet, his exercise, even his mental faculties makes you think, God, what else is there to know?
Well, first of all, I think it's Cory Booker who needs a cognitive exam. I think he was losing his mind or just overacting a little bit. The best part of this press conference were reporters grilling this guy about diet and exercise. Have you ever seen a reporter's diet? Have you ever seen a reporter exercise? You saw that disheveled mess in the back. I can't think of his name. It's some guy.
That doesn't narrow it down.
I didn't narrow it. His hair's all over. He was asking about cholesterol. That guy like inhales cholesterol. They have the health of a hobo. Trump, you have to understand, and I think a lot of young people don't get this. He's that your old school uncle. There's no Pilates, there's no meditation, there's no organic kale. He eats what's in front of him, usually covered in ketchup. But then he's healthier than a yoga instructor because he's healthy like a bull as opposed to healthy like a ballet dancer. It's like old school health. He might be like this forever, but then he might drop. But that's like everybody knows these kinds of people.
Strong like bull.
Yeah, so they're just like, they don't do what you're supposed to do. They just do what they want.
Yeah.
So he eats whatever he wants, and he doesn't exercise except when he plays golf, Kimberly. But he doesn't smoke tobacco, never has, and doesn't drink. And the doctor actually says that if he hadn't eaten all this McDonald's his whole life, he could have been 200 years old.
I put together some really impressive deals.